What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Strength for Your Purpose podcast. We are rolling along in the month of January. It's almost over. I feel like the holidays finished yesterday, and here we are, most of the way through the month of January as you're listening to this. Just another example of how time flies. But as the month rolls along here, we are rolling along with some more incredible interviews. You all know how much I love selfishly, I love talking to these people and learning this information myself, but doing it in this platform allows me to get that information out to you all so that you can be fulfilling your true purpose in life. And the train keeps on rolling here today as I am joined by Karen Hayden of Hayden Mindfulness. And Karen is a former corporate executive and certified mindfulness meditation teacher that combines her corporate experience with her mindfulness training to help develop a new way to lead and live, one that balances goals with overall health and well-being. Through her approach, she demonstrates and trains how to personally live each day while being present for yourself and others. This is a training that builds resilience, improves relationships, increases focus, and improves overall health and happiness. I'm really excited for this. Karen, thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast.
Thanks, Phil. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and you know, I looking over things and us chatting kind of before we set this up. I was really excited to talk to you because of how you're blending your own personal experience in the corporate world with this new training in mindfulness and meditation. And I love some of the things you hit on there, how you're the type of results that you're trying to achieve with people that you help with this. So talk to me a little bit about how you've sort of made this little pivot, from that more corporate structure into what you're doing now. How did that all come about for you?
Yeah, if you had asked me, I would say, I don't know, 10 years ago, 5 or 10 years ago, would I be leaving my 25-year banking profession to teach mindfulness? I would have said, what are you talking about? But it's been such a beneficial learning and skill building for me over the years that the more that I was practicing it and the more I was seeing benefits, the more I just wanted to share with other people.
Mm,
So just take a step back. So I was introduced to meditation like most people through yoga back in like 2007. And
mm,
there's always this phase at the end of yoga, shavasana, where you sort of lay down and you're kind of in a corpse pose and just relaxing. And there's just some sense of peacefulness that sort of I achieved at that point. And was really curious about meditation. Just started exploring a little bit more, doing some reading about meditation,
mm,
and then just started doing a practice of my own, just kind of on and off, mostly like a lot of people would do. And then around 2014, 15, I really wanted to dig deeper. So that's when I started training a little bit more purposefully around getting some more skills around mindfulness and what really was this all about,
mm,
particularly because as I was at that time, probably like, I don't know, 20 years in corporate banking, and really being in the business environment. And like lots of people feeling lots of stress, my life was flying
mm,
by. I just never seemed to have enough time, sort of that monkey mind flying around all over the place. The one place where I was able to sort of get some sense of ease and peace of mind was really when I was meditating. So it
mm.
was really pulling me in that direction. So fast forward, got some training, and then really wanted to begin sharing that with my staff. So in 2016, I started introducing mindfulness where I worked in the workplace, and it was really optional. It was more like, hey, listen, I'm getting some benefit from this. I'm going to make it available for you folks, lead you through some guided meditations, and if that's something that feels good to you, then feel free to join in. And otherwise, you don't need to. So I'd been doing that from 2016 all the way through 2021 when I made the decision to actually leave banking full time. I was just completing a 2-year certification program, which I'm graduating actually next weekend. Um,
Congratulations.
yeah, so 2 years of just pretty much intense training, and yeah, so now I want to combine my corporate experience along with my mindfulness training to really see if I can make a difference, in the workforce in particular.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's so cool to sort of, it almost seems in some of these instances where, people almost just stumble upon something that then
Yeah.
becomes like second career, right?
Yeah.
Like it turns into a whole new passion, and who knows, maybe that was your true purpose to begin with. But what was it about your own practice where you were kind of diving into this on your own that
Yeah.
made you want to learn more in a
Mhm.
way that allowed you to confidently bring this to other people and share the results you were getting yourself? What about the practice was really wanted to make you take that next step and actually help others, at first just your peers, basically your coworkers, your colleagues, and then that leading into doing it really more professionally?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have to say that um, we spend a lot of time working on training of our bodies, right? So we all know that we can go to the gym and we can work out, and then a lot of us study whatever career path we follow, right? So we go to college and we learn and we read and we build skills around there.
Mm,
What I didn't understand before the training was that we also have the ability to build skills with our mind,
mm,
and we don't really talk about that very often, right? So we talk about how we can benefit and train our body, we can train a skill from a technical perspective, but we never talk about, can we train the mind? And
mm,
that, so that we have this wandering mind, and the majority of us are living in our heads all the time. And a
mm,
lot of us don't realize that we have the opportunity to be able to kind of sort of be at the driver's seat and be able to sort of dictate where our mind goes. And it's through skill building, and it's not just, it's the same discipline that we would put into learning something new. It just doesn't happen just because we want it to.
mm,
So I have always been a voracious learner, and then once I realized that you can actually learn how to do this, and when I personally saw the benefits of just being way more at ease and sleeping better and just not having this runaway thoughts sort of take over my day, uh, I knew that I was feeling a tremendous amount of benefit from it. And one of the things in my career I've always been able to do, which is a skill, is sort of take things that are kind of complex and break them down into simple parts and be able to
mm.
train people. So most of my career I've been coaching and training and mentoring others.
Oh,
So
wow.
this just became another tool that I could access in that format to be able to help people really think of the mind in a different way, and that it's not something that you just address when you have a diagnosis,
Yeah.
but it's something that, can help you on a day to day basis.
Yeah, kind of just an ongoing health and wellness
Yeah.
practice. And I think you're right. I think sometimes we think, and I say we, I guess I should just say I think, because I definitely had this thought that a great way to just mentally escape from the stresses of a job, especially one that maybe is more, well, I guess I want to be careful how I say this. Not that some jobs are cerebral and some jobs aren't,
Mhm.
but certain people have jobs that are more physically demanding. Certain people have jobs that are more mentally demanding. Some people have a mix of those things. So when you, regardless of what your job is, if you've had a more mentally and emotionally demanding day,
Mhm.
that a way to give your brain, your brain and your emotions some health and wellness is to just shut off and maybe scroll on TikTok or
Mhm.
more check out. But something tells me here that's probably not the best way to
Yeah.
give our brain the boost and the break it needs from the things that have made us mentally exhausted,
Yeah.
and that some of the techniques we tend to go to probably feed into it more than help us, even though we kind of
Yeah.
think in the moment it helps us because it's given us those little happy endorphins that we get from mindlessly doing this,
Yeah.
scrolling on our phone. So talk to me a little bit about that. Like what is the difference between those two things? Are they
Mhm.
sort of similar but just act differently? And does one have more of effect than the other? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So the unfortunate thing about distraction is it continues to sort of reinforce the fact that we're still living in our heads. So our biggest challenge that we have is that we become disassociated from our bodies, right? So we have this body that's actually living in the physical world that we experience through our senses. So we see things, we hear things, we smell things, we touch things. Um, but most of us, because we're living so often in our heads and in our thoughts and our minds, that whatever's our body's experiencing right here in the present moment, which ironically is the only moment that we absolutely have control of, is the one you're in right now. So it
Mm,
doesn't matter how much planning you're doing, how much rehearsing you're doing, how much reliving the perfect conversation. None
mm,
of that can actually occur because it's already gone or it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So the only moment that you have right now is the one that you're actually sitting in. So if I want to feel happier, if I want to feel more at peace or at ease,
Mm.
I need to do that through the senses, right? And getting out of your head. Things like TikTok, scrolling on your phones, you know, the virtual reality goggles, they're just another way to stay in your head, right? So it activates the thought process. You're stimulating the thoughts, where in actuality, what you need to do is really drop into your body, like get out of your head, like drop into your body, into the present moment, and
Mm.
just take a few breaths and just experience what's happening in the present moment. Because 99% of the time, the moment that you're in right now isn't bad.
Mm. Mm.
We've got, most of us have, food on the table, shelter, clothing,
Mm.
so all these worst case scenarios that we're playing out in our mind to get ready for, unfortunately, zaps us of resources,
Mm.
that aren't really needed at the moment. So it's kind of like you're at a stop sign and you're in your car and your foot's on the gas all the time and you're revving the engine, but you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you need to go someplace and you put your foot on the gas and you run out of gas because
Ah.
you've been using it, when you really didn't need it. So I sort of use that analogy as well too. So the first thing I would say for people, if they want to decompress from their day, is actually take some deep breaths, try to get back into your body, feel the floor underneath your feet,
Mm.
connect with your senses, and really dropping out of your head. Because in most cases, the thoughts that we're doing are creating stress and anxiety and gearing us up for something that's probably not even going to happen.
Yeah. I love that car analogy. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where if you can explain to people, that's why mindfulness is one of those things that can have mindfulness meditation in particular. It's sort of, everyone can have a different definition of what it is,
Mm.
because it's sort of out there everywhere, but the definitions can be very different as well too. So,
Mm.
um, if I could just take a moment and just kind of explain, sort of what those two are, I think that might
Yes.
help. Sort
Yeah,
of
please.
back to the car analogy might be helpful.
Yeah.
So I'm a certified teacher in mindfulness meditation. So what the heck is that? Because you see mindfulness all over the place.
Yeah.
So first of all, meditation, let's just break them into two components because they're two different things that you can put together. So the first thing is meditation. So meditation has been around for thousands of years.
Mm.
And meditation is really a concentration practice,
Mm.
right? It's the ability to take your mind and focus in on an object of attention.
Mm.
And you just sort of, over time, you're able to say, okay, well, instead of having 1,000 thoughts in my mind all over the place, I'm going to work at my mind and I'm going to focus on one thing,
Mm.
and sometimes, concentrations can be on an image,
Mm.
it can be, and it's usually something that you repeat over time. So it's either a phrase you say over time, it's something that you're feeling in your body over time. So through that repetition, you're building the ability to take your mind and focus it on a thing, right? So that's the meditation part. The mindfulness part is the ability to be aware of what's happening right here and now.
Mm.
So I'm mindful of this moment. People say, I got to be mindful, right? So mindfulness is the awareness of what's happening right in this moment without judgment,
Mm.
and on purpose. And then that's the first part. The second part, so that you can react to what's happening right here and now appropriately.
Mm.
Right? So it's not adding stories from the past and the future and building. It's seeing what's actually happening in this moment without judgment, on purpose, so that you can act uh, with the right purpose.
Mm.
Right? So you're seeing more clearly. So
Mm.
so that's really what I teach people to do, is how to build a concentration and then how to build the skills
Mm.
to be aware in the present moment, so that then your response is more appropriate.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I'm really glad you separated those two things because and actually as it's good to separate them, but it is interesting to see how they do fit together because as you said, the meditation is the focusing on one thing and the repetition of that, and then blending that with the being in the moment allows you to doing both of them at the same time, or they might not happen exactly at the same time. Like maybe initially you probably have to separate those things. I'm guessing there's probably a progression here. But in a way, you're probably doing some meditation while you're doing some mindfulness and vice versa. It just depends on what your intention going into the practices, I guess. But I guess that's sort of my next question is talking a little bit about, is it easier to separate them at the beginning? Is it better to combine them at the beginning? And then how have you, or are they already combined? When we're doing one, we're kind of doing the other. And then how have you, personally, and what do you do with people that you coach with this to help then take that out of that more controlled setting and put it in more of the hustle and bustle of the day?
Yeah, great questions. So they go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So the first part is when, when I'm working with, whether it's a group or whether it's a one-on-one, we start with the meditation piece. And the meditation piece helps to, like I said, back to the concentration piece, but it helps you to connect back to your body. And usually the object of the attention, which you'll get most of the time, is the breath, particularly in mindfulness meditation. So you'll hear that all the time, focused, like nice long breath in, long breath out. So it's the ability to sort of follow along with the breath. One of the pieces of, or the benefits as well too, is when you start with the meditation, it starts to help calm the mind. So instead of having thousands of, I use this analogy all the time. I'm gonna give you. I love props and I love examples.
I love it. Let's do it.
Okay, so I use this in all my teaching. It's sort of like my little mantra thing that I do. So I have the snow globe, right? So if I have the snow globe, right, and I just imagining that the snow globe is your mind, and all those little flakes are all the thoughts that are bouncing all over the place. So when you start to meditate, the first thing you do is sit still and focus, right? And notice what happens when you actually sit still, right?
Yeah,
So
everything's
all those thoughts start to float down, and the thing that's right in front of you starts to become way more visible, right? So you start to see the present moment much more clearly. So when you start with the meditation part, the first thing you're trying to do is to sit still, being able to sit still by using the breath and helping those thoughts kind of settle down, right? So once you're able to do that, and again, that's the practice. So when I'm teaching, that's the first thing we do is we always just start with the breath, and we just do a nice, like, following the breath, and what we're doing is helping those thoughts to settle, because you can't start to see clearly until you stop the noise, right? And the way you stop the noise is give your mind something to settle on, the breath, a candle wick or whatever. And then once you're able to do that, then the second part of it is, okay, how do we experience the present moment? And that's through our bodies. So it's really the first base, and then the second basic step is to really become familiar with how we feel sensations in our bodies. And we know some of the big ones, right? When we're scared or upset, our stomachs rumble, or the hairs on our neck stand up, or we get nervous, we sweat, our heart races. So we've got the big ones, but there's a lot of subtle things that happen in our bodies, sort of like, whether it's your gut instinct or whether it's, your heart starts to race, that we don't really pay that much attention to. So so the next part is just teaching how to get reacquainted with the sensations and the messages that your body's telling you. And how you take that back to yours. So you learn how to do this through a practice, right? So you just, whether you do it daily or you do it with a guided, a person like me who helps you do that. Then when you become more familiar with sort of when you become anxious or those sensations your body is giving you, you'll be able to pick it up. Like if you and I are having a conversation and you say something that's upsetting to me, I'm going to notice, oh, wait a minute, I'm feeling like a little agitated right now. And so you're able to sort of be more responsive and more aware of what actually is happening, again, right in front of you, whether they be emotions, whether they be your thoughts, or whether they be your perceptions. Because really that's where we get into trouble, is when we're not aware of the emotions we're having. We're not aware of the thoughts or stories we're telling ourselves, right? We're great. We're all should be like, Oscar-winning writers, because we create like the most dramatic stories ever, right? And then our bodies, unfortunately, our minds don't know the difference between what we're making up and what's real. So again, we're back into like creating all these stories. So how do we transfer it is as you become more aware of how you're feeling, what
Mm,
you're thinking, you're able to create, the power in this whole thing is to create a space
mm,
between what's actually happening and your reaction to it.
ah,
So if you can feel something, whether it's strong or a thought that's really, and you can just say, "Oh, wait, I'm feeling something." That little, just that little pause in the middle
mm,
gives you back control and freedom to be able to then see it as something separate, where now you can choose how you want to respond. Am I
mm,
going to scream at the top of my lungs? Am I going to kick in that same habit of how I respond over and over again? Or am I going to take a second and just now decide, okay, wait a minute, is that working for me or is it not working for me? And if it's not, do I want to do something different?
mm. But that's great. And as you're talking about this, a couple things come to mind. One, we had to keep an actual mindfulness journal when I was going through grad school, but we didn't really necessarily always start it with like meditation to get into mindfulness,
Mhm.
where we would focus on like the breath, and it usually wasn't guided. They wanted us to sort of explore this ourselves as we like read different aspects of it and kind of layered it on top. And I was just terrible at it, Karen. I was so bad because I'm the type A. I'm like the
Mhm.
worker. Like let's the worker bee. Like let's go. And so to allow myself to let things fall away and just focus on one thing, and then getting to that higher level where you're maybe following that one thing and
Mhm.
into another, it was so impossible. But I had classmates who would come in and talk about how they explored watching themselves in like a different world sitting in at a waterfall, and I'm like, what
Right.
what did you take before you started doing this to open your mind up that much? And
Right.
it was just easy and natural for them. So I really like the idea of what you're talking about here, of making it a practice and a small, very, very focused one to begin with, and leading into the mindfulness via the meditation, because the meditation brings you to a mindful place by
Yes.
focusing on one thing. Because like you said, it makes so much sense that this helps people with sleep, because when our heads at that pillow and those thousands of thoughts are racing through our minds and we can't calm them down, how do you focus on one thing
Mhm.
out of all of those thoughts going on,
Right.
without first getting your brain and your body prepared to do that? So that makes so much sense. And the fact that is a practice also tells me that applying it in our day to day is a bit of a practice too,
Right.
because I hear from people I help all the time, like, oh, I feel so silly that I can't do this thing that you're showing me how to do with this part of my body. It's like, well, you haven't had to think of it for maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 years, however long it's been for you. You haven't thought about it. That's kind of why we're here, is because you
Yeah.
you haven't thought about how to do that thing. And then slowly you see the dots connect with them saying, "Oh, I felt that my shoulder was doing this the other day, and I immediately fixed it, and it felt so good," and all this stuff, and then it becomes second nature. So, kind of the follow up here is, I'm guessing that day to day aspect is a practice as well, because it's going to take us a minute to realize, like, oh, I've honed in on this thought before. I've just done it in this setting, and now I need to do it in this setting.
Yeah, that's a great question too. I would say, you know, first of all, a couple of myths first is that, this whole practice is not about stopping the mind from thinking, right? So
Mm.
this is not about, oh, I'm going to live in nirvana and I'm going to be, whatever. Um, it's not about that, right? Because your mind is meant to have thoughts, and that's the way it works. And your body will have emotions, and so we're human beings, right, that are alive and fully alive. So it's
Yeah.
not a practice of changing any of that, right?
Mm.
It's really a practice of being more aware of what's happening, and you're kind of like this observer watching, so that you can see
Yes.
it as it's happening.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so so okay, I lost track of the question here. So what was the original
Oh, well,
question?
the kind of the follow-up to that was, it's a practice to just
Oh,
learn how to do
yeah.
this.
Perfect.
So that practice then gets extended a little
Yeah.
bit when we're applying it to day-to-day life. And
I mean, the hardest part is realizing that, so we're so much on autopilot, like you drive to work, like because we do so many things that are repetitive day after day, that we just go on autopilot, right? So the first real practice is waking up, like sort of like getting, like snapping out of sort of that, you could call it like a trance, like the trance that we're in our day-to-day lives, like driving to work and getting ready and eating breakfast and getting your kids off to, like literally you could probably name 10 things that you could do on autopilot, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about being mindful, like it's the hardest thing is actually being aware of what you're doing. So
Mm,
there's like simple practices like, before you enter a room or hold a doorknob, take 3 deep breaths and actually feel the doorknob in your hand,
mm,
right? Or there's this great practice during the day, and this is really awesome with children. It's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? So 5 things you can see, 4 things that you can, I'm going to do this wrong. I always forget them, but 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can taste. So you kind of go through all the 5 senses in actuality. And what it's trying to do is during the day is to just reconnect you back to your body, breaking that trance of
mm,
just falling into habits. You know what I mean?
mm,
Because it's so powerful. Like literally so much of our life is repetition that it allows us the opportunity to sort of step out of ourselves, so to speak,
mm,
and our body, like I said, is kind of on autopilot. So yes, it's a practice, and the first practice is waking up. Like some people I know will actually put a timer. So every hour the timer goes off and they take 3 deep breaths. And they take it from the belly so that they're feeling their body breathing, right? So they're activating their
yeah,
body's common response. So there's all these little tricks that you can do just to kind of, I want to say, snap yourself out of, snap
yeah,
yourself out of your head. Um,
yeah,
Easier said than done.
for sure. I mean,
Which
I
is why
think
this
about,
practice.
yeah, yeah. I think about just this morning, we had got a message from daycare that our infant needed more diapers. And then you just go through that morning routine like you normally would do it. Okay, now it's time to bring stuff to the car and get the car started and warmed up, and then go back in and get the kids and then bring them out to the car. And then you get to daycare and go, I didn't bring the diapers. And the thing that snaps you out of the trance is pulling into the daycare. And so having a practice like this where you almost have a way of, like, before you walk out the door, you grab the doorknob and do the deep breaths and
Right.
focus on the breathing and the doorknob. That might allow you to go, the diapers, and then grab them before
Yeah,
you get to daycare and go, what's going to happen now?
right.
So no, that's great. I think having those day-to-day examples where if sitting down and trying this type of practices seems overwhelming for people, maybe a good way to start dabbling is to, well, first and foremost, they should reach out to you. But secondly, even just dabbling in enveloping it into their day a little bit and becoming just slightly more aware of how they feel when they're, as you said, quote unquote, in the trance, and when they're taking that little break, whatever that break might look like. I feel like that's a great way for people to start.
Yeah, and I would also say too that, what's really amazing about doing this practice or learning is it doesn't take. It's not like you have to spend 2 hours a day. Like literally, if you just sat still and followed your breath, 15 minutes, 20. I mean, ideally it's 20 minutes a day because it usually takes about 5 to 7, 8 minutes to just calm down. Like,
Sure.
remember the stillness, like for,
Mm,
right? But
the
like
self love, yeah.
literally, if it, the part that I really want to find of an effective way to communicate to folks is literally 20 minutes could change your life. Like
Mm,
20 minutes can, like if I could guarantee you that if you did this one thing for 20 minutes every day, it doesn't matter. You don't have to do it good. You just have to show up,
yeah.
right? Because there's no, the beauty of this too is, there are different types of, we talk about the body and exercise, and you being a PT, this, there are certain ways you have to do certain things to not hurt
Mm,
yourself.
sure.
But like literally just showing up, 20 minutes a day, sitting in a chair. And again, you don't have to sit on the floor and be a pretzel, and you don't have to,
Yeah.
you could sit in a chair, be comfortable however you'd like, but showing up for 20 minutes and just following your breath in and out, or,
Mm,
and there's a lot of really good apps out there. There's a Calm app and Headspace. And, those are really nice, tools to be able to get you used to sitting and having a guided meditation. They're not, they're, like I said, they're good to kind of get you going.
mm,
Um, but through time, you're going to want to develop the skills yourself so that you're able to kind of take it on the road and so forth. But
sure.
literally
Yeah.
20 minutes a day, you know, just showing up however you show up and giving it a shot, can make such a huge difference.
Yeah, that 20 minutes a day can certainly snowball, or maybe we should say snow globe, right? It's the snow globe.
There
It's
you
the
go.
snow globe effect of mindfulness
Yeah,
meditation.
I'm gonna
That's
have to write
great.
that one down.
Yeah,
Snow globe effect.
put it on a t-shirt. It's yours. Um,
Awesome.
awesome. Well, I have two more questions I want to ask you here, Karen. But
Okay.
before I ask you those, I just want to give you an opportunity to let people know how they can maybe find you, reach out to you if they have specific questions, kind of
Mhm.
learn more about you know, your practice and all that good stuff. What's the best way for people to do that?
Great question. I'm kind of in transition, so I will have more some in the future, but
Sure.
really, I have a website, KarenHaydenMindfulness.com. So if you want to try that, it's the best way to get me, or MissKarenHayden@gmail.com is one way to get me. But my contact information is on the website. I'm actually in the process of looking for some space. So I've been doing a lot of my teaching virtually. So
Mm.
hopefully in early this year, I'll be able to have a space and have an opportunity to bring people together in person. Because I think one of
Yeah.
the things that we're all looking for is community, and
Mm.
this is a really nice way to kind of meet people as well too.
Yeah.
So for now, I think those are probably, check me out on the website. My contact information's there, and I'm happy to work with individuals one on one, both from a leadership and coaching perspective, small groups, and I'll be launching my next series of classes here in the next several weeks as well.
Wonderful. And we will make sure we have that website right in the show notes for people so you can go and check that out and stay up to date for all of the awesome opportunities that Karen has to offer with the new space and some new offerings. So last two questions here, Karen, we like to ask
Mhm.
all of the guests this because I really don't think we've ever had the exact same answer twice on these. And this is 105 episodes of this of
Oh
this of this
no!
of this podcast. No, it's great. I love it. I love that we've never had the same answer twice. This is fantastic. So my first question is, what is your definition of strength?
Oh, my definition of strength. Boy, that's a really good one.
Hmm.
I think the opportunity to just persevere,
Mm,
in all aspects, both body and mind
mm,
and spirit,
yeah,
because in each one of those categories it means something different, but just to persevere through all those three components, I guess, would be my
yeah.
answer.
I love that because you really can't persevere through one without the other two.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then my second question, this one will be a little easier, I think. Um, what is your true purpose in life?
Oh, there's no question about that one. That's an easy one. To help others.
Mm,
I've been helping and helping to guide and support and teach and, just helping others, whether it's through skill building or hearing or listening or
mm,
um, whatever's needed at the time, just strong need to help others.
yeah, that's fantastic. Well, it's so great, Karen, to see you living out your true purpose in life and taking taking what you felt passionate about in that former career and
Mhm.
adapting it to something that's helped you in such a way that you make helping people in that way a whole nother career. So
Yeah.
congratulations to you on
Yeah.
that. Congratulations to you on your upcoming graduation from your
Thank you.
certification. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And I can't thank you enough for sharing all this knowledge with us and talking to us about this. Everybody, please go check out Karen's website. It'll be in the show notes. And thank you so much for taking the time to join me here, Karen. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And thank you for asking me. It's been my pleasure.
Of course. Wonderful. Well, like I said, everybody, go check that out so you can learn a little bit more about what Karen has to offer. And if you found value in this episode, please be a friend and tell a friend, share it with someone you know, love, and respect who can get value out of this as well. And until next time, go make it a great week. We'll see you back here next week on another episode of the Strength for Your Purpose podcast. Bye, everybody.